Okay, in previous topic, we already discussed on the demand and ecosystem and also issues involved in the conservation. Okay, so in this particular topic, I want to concentrate further on the issues in ecosystem, but specifically in regard with pollution. Well, actually, as I believe that you have a pretty good general knowledge regarding this issue, there are actually many types of pollution, environmental pollution that we have to address nowadays with the increasing pressure and demand on the ecosystem. Basically, we have expect the increase in the environmental pollution. So these are the list of the common environmental pollution that has been studied extensively. So we put more emphasis on the air pollution, water pollution, soil pollution, noise pollution, and there are several types of other pollution which are light pollution, visual pollution, and also thermal pollution. And this has been not being discussed critically in the past. So in this particular chapter, I would like you to pay a little bit more attention on these um, three, four types of pollution, which are air pollution, water pollution, soil pollution, and noise pollution. So in this particular topic, I'll just introduce the fundamental knowledge regarding the pollution so that you understand what causes pollution, what would be the effect of pollution. But I want, basically, I hope that you will explore more on the current issues regarding this topic, the real life situation of the pollution that happening around the world, whether in a local setting or also the international setting. So basically, open up your mind and look for more sources to explore what is happening nowadays with regards of pollution, environmental pollution. Okay, so you feel free to explore to update your knowledge regarding recent issues in pollution. For example, maybe the river pollution in Selangor that relate with the water shortage in certain areas in past week and also in this week. Okay, so basically, there are a lot of resources out there, website, and also news channel that report specifically on the environmental pollution. So I would like to start first with the air pollution. So basically, everyone know here regarding air pollution. Air pollution, usually in Malaysia, we are pretty common with haze, right? So in this particular chapter, I'll show you what parameters are used to quantify or classify or to assess air pollution. Okay, first about air pollution, you have to be able to identify or explain the types or common types of air pollutants. Okay, pollutants is the one that contribute to pollution. So make yourself familiarized with this term. Make sure you know when to use pollutant and when to use pollution. Okay, so these are the common types of air pollutants. And we are common with carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide. This is CO, SO2, and CFC. Um, Nitrogen oxide, which is NOx. Okay, and these pollutants are commonly produced by industries and also motor vehicle. So for air pollutants, basically, it can be categorized into two types, which we call it as a primary pollutants and also secondary pollutants. So primary pollutants is the one that being emitted directly from the source, whether from the anthropogenic sources or the natural sources. Anthropogenic relate with human activities, while natural relate with the natural processes. In this figure, you see that the anthropogenic sources comes from the motor vehicle or the industries, while the natural sources could come from something like volcanic eruption. Okay, so basically, the primary pollutants are the pollutants that being released directly from pollutant source, whether anthropogenic or natural sources, and it is called primary pollutants. And while the secondary pollutants actually comes from the reaction between the primary pollutants with the normal atmospheric compound or sunlight. For example, I take one example here is SO2. SO2 react with oxygen, which is normal atmospheric compound, to become SO3, and react with SO2 react with H2O to produce H2SO4, which is this is a sulfuric acid. And for example, again here we have NO react with oxygen. Now we have NOx, and many other types of pollutants that can be derived from the reaction of primary pollutants with normal atmospheric compound. Well, in atmospheric compound, we know it has gases, mainly like CO2, O2, or water vapor, and also sunlight. Okay. So these are the differences between the primary and secondary pollutants. Alright, so this slide basically shows the main cause of air pollution. Right, so basically it is widely accepted that the main contributor of air pollution in developing region are mainly from motor vehicle and also industries. Okay, so these are the two major factors or major sources of air pollutants. Okay, so in general, we are always relate air pollution with the long-term effect, which relate to what we call it as global warming, right? Global warming, and which we will discuss later on. But since whatever human activities or anthropogenic activities, it's very, very common to associate with the release of extra CO2. Okay, so basically, carbon dioxide that being released to the environment, to the atmosphere, that is the one that triggered to the increase in air temperature and lead to global warming. Okay, an increase in global temperature, for example. So basically, the CO2 also has direct impact on human being because it tend to it has the higher affinity to bind with our hemoglobin compared to oxygen. So basically, this is not good for our system because instead of oxygen, the hemoglobin will carry CO2 instead. Okay. So due to that fact, if we have higher CO2 in the atmosphere, it's not just that we have a higher temperature, but it also reduces the ability of blood to transport oxygen and affect our physical or physiological processes. Okay, this is the example, another example of issues with air pollution, whereby we have the phenomena called smoke. Okay, smoke, where we have thick smoke, fog, that is made of fog and smoke. All right, and these basically trigger or being created through the reaction of sunlight and pollutants that trap in our atmospheric layer. Okay, that trap within the cool and dense dense air. So we have a condition where there's smoke that is created by fog and smoke. Okay, so and this is another phenomena that is very common for us, haze. So basically, it's a atmospheric phenomena where the dust, smoke, and dry particulate material obstruct the clarity of the sky. So basically, we have these issues in our country at least once a year. because of the open burning, because of the burning of agricultural land from the neighboring country, because of the increase in the of, development activities in some region. Okay, so basically, we measure haze, the severity of haze or the severity of air pollution by using air pollution index or API. Well, in Malaysia, we use this index, air pollution index, that is being quantified based on the measurement of these 5 parameters: PM10, CO2, SO2, NO2, and O3. Okay, for PM10 stand for particulate material with size of 10 micron times 10 micrometer and above. CO2 is carbon dioxide, SO2 is sulfur dioxide, and NO2 is nitrous oxide, and O3 is ozone. Okay, so the combination of these 5 parameters is used to calculate the API, air pollution index. Okay. So basically, for air pollution index, typically when we have haze peak episode, everyone will be alert with the API. Everyone will be alert whether it's a green or yellow or red status, right? But basically, all those status depends on the this index. All right. For example, here is low air pollution, low level of air pollution indicate by the API less than 25, for example, and the medium would be range from 26 to 50, and high air pollution level occur when the API reach 51 until 100, and sometimes it goes up to very high where we can start to see in the chart, and we can see red color zone. Then it indicate a very high air pollution with API exceed 100 to 200. And sometimes this is very rare. Okay, we have as well severe air pollution where the index can up to 500. So basically, the risk of on environmental health or human health is being assessed through this category. Okay, different API level, different API fall classified into different air pollution level, and it has its associated health implication. So the advice whether to close school, to limit outdoor activities really depends on the API value. And the API value are being quantified every hour, continuous measurement from these 5 parameters. Okay, just a little bit on the effect of greenhouse gases. So as basically you realize there are many types of greenhouse gases, and we can see from this figure we have like CO2, methane, SO2, CH4, SO2, and NO2. So basically these greenhouse gases can basically trap the heat from the sunlight, and it create the warmer atmosphere in the environment. So this is the reason why we say that these are greenhouse gases that increase the air temperature. So basically when we talk about global warming and climate change, we have to know the causes of global warming and climate change, the mechanism of how it happened. The mechanism is basically related to the ability of all those greenhouse gases to trap more heat. And also, we must also understand the effect of global warming and also climate change. So basically, when we talk about the effect of global warming, we can link it to so many aspects of life. Basically, in this figure, you see the physical effect of global warming. It can be discussed in terms of the extreme weather, effect on weather, and effect on the melting of the ice melt. Okay, and also the it's related with the ocean, with the increased ocean temperature, increase in ocean or mean sea level, and acidification of the ocean, and oxygen depletion. There are many types of physical effect, and this is basically driven by the increased air temperature. Okay, so next, global warming and also climate change can also affect economic and social in many ways. So as described earlier, basically global warming and climate change usually associate with the extreme weather. All right, so therefore we can relate with the economic and social impact. Just think it this way. So when we have like the extreme weather events, whether it can lead to what we call as the flooding, or at the same time we have drought. Okay, and all these relate with the economic impact, where it sometimes it relate with the destruction, and therefore it relate with the insurance, the transport system. When, for example, when we have flooding, excessive rain will later on trigger the landslide. Okay, and it will affect the road system, and obviously at the same time, other than the variability of rain, we have as well the increased temperature in certain region that lead to drought, and also high temperature that would affect on plant growth, and therefore it gives the low crop yield, low economic turnover, and also sometimes it can cause the shortage in food supply. And in terms of the ecosystem, basically global warming can also disrupt the survival of many types of plants and animals. That's why it can modify the composition of the biotic component in the ecosystem because of the changes in the abiotic component, which mostly we talk about rain and temperature, right? So other than that, these will also affect on the water scarcity. Water scarcity is water shortage. Okay, this is the one that we can relate with flood or drought again. When drought, in certain years we are experiencing a prolonged drought where there's very little rainfall that will lead to um, low water level in river used for water supply, and it lead to water scarcity because at the same time drought is associated with increased air temperature, and more water is needed to water for the agricultural sector. That's why it can lead to water scarcity or increase in water demand. Okay, and there's another thing that we have to take note here, that the increase of the severity of climate change will also affect public health, because we believe that there are many studies out there that relate the climate change with the spread of contagious diseases. Okay, like what is happening now, for example, in the case of the new virus or the evolution of new bacteria, microorganism that can affect human health. There are already many studies established and predict that the severity of climate change would further trigger the evolution of microorganism and lead to the mutation in pathogenic microorganism that make them more powerful, and therefore it is expected that in future we are facing more frequent pandemic that relating with virus or bacteria. Okay, so this is just to summarize the consequence of environmental change that I have described earlier. So you can use this figure to further understand or to summarize. And basically, this is the effect of climate change on human health, as the same thing that I have described earlier. So basically, it causes the displacement because of flood or drought or the bushfire, the wildfire also can increase because of high air temperature, um, and the infectious disease and respiratory disease because of the air pollutants, and shortage in food supply will relate with the malnutrition in certain region as well. Okay, this is how we relate the air pollution with um, climate change or global warming, and also what consequences are being brought by this worldwide issue. Okay, so in next section, we are going to discuss a little bit on water pollution. So this is to provide a basic understanding or the fundamental understanding on water pollution issue. So we all realize that the water is so important in our daily life, but the the growing concern over this fact is that we have a lot of water available, but the usable portion is getting less and less. The usable portion means that portion that can be used suitable for many types of human use because of the quality, right? In this present year, we are being exposed with many event where we heard about water pollution issues everywhere, whether local or international setting. And this water pollution basically can affect many aspects of human life. It can as well affect the social and economic of the region. Okay, so basically water pollution is a degradation in water quality. This happens when we see that the physical, chemical, and biological change in water quality that adversely affect living organism or make it no longer suitable for desired use. So basically polluted water is not considered as usable water. So when we talk about water pollution, then we have to know there are many types of at least major two types of water pollution. We call it as surface water pollution and also groundwater pollution. So for surface water pollution, it occurs on surface water. Surface water, it could be river, it could be lake, okay, it could be any water that is exposed on the surface. So this is the most common type of water pollution because we can see directly. And there is another type of water pollution, which is groundwater pollution. So basically, in the past, we believe that groundwater is clean, right? So, but with the pollution on the terrestrial ecosystem, we cannot be 100% sure that the groundwater will always be safe for usage. So just keep in mind that whenever there's rain come down, okay, evaporation, precipitation, okay, the rain that come down will generate surface runoff. This is runoff. It means that the pollutants on this terrestrial ecosystem, on the soil, whether in the air atmosphere or on the soil, on the terrestrial ecosystem, will be brought into aquatic ecosystem. Okay, the pollutants will come in. And at the same time, we have another mechanism or process where we call it as infiltration, which is the penetration of this water from terrestrial, from the ground surface into groundwater. This is the groundwater level. All right. So basically, what happened is the pollutants on the soil or on this terrestrial or soil surface will be brought and contaminate the groundwater as well. So this is why we cannot be totally sure that the groundwater is safe nowadays, because it depends on the area. If the upper area is polluted or the ground or the soil is polluted, so we can basically certain that there are at least to up to a certain degree the groundwater will also be polluted. Okay, but since in Malaysia, for example, we depend mostly on surface water for consumption, and our water supply basically comes from surface water. So the status or the quality of the groundwater um, is not being monitored closely, but keep in mind that there are many um, water supply, I mean the drinking water bottled water get the source from groundwater. So it is pretty risky here at this stage. Uh, so that it just alert community nowadays that there is a need for a proper water quality analysis even for the groundwater. Okay, for the surface water pollution, the pollutants basically comes in from two different sources, two categories of sources. We classify the sources of pollutants into point source, sorry, point source and non-point source. Okay, for point source, point, it means that the source of pollutants can be identified exactly at that particular point. For example, it is here, okay, where you can determine its exact location. You can give the coordinate, for example. So point source include those like factories, power plant, sewage treatment plant, coal mine, oil well, where you can see there's a clear drain or water pollutants inlet, okay, the inlet that brings in pollutant into this water body. So this is point, because we can point exactly the exact location. And in contrast, we have another source of water pollutants where we call it as non-point source. It comes in every way where the exact point cannot be figured out, cannot be identified. Alright? So this is non-point source. It involves runoff, like rainwater from farm, lawn, construction site, logging areas, the street, and the pollutants enter the water body scattered or diffused with no specific discharge location. So we cannot, basically in this big lake, for example, we cannot identify the exact location where the pollutants come in, but it could happen all over the edge of the lake. So basically, it's highly episodic, depends on rain mostly, because it depends on stormwater or rainwater or surface runoff. And that's why for this type of pollutant source, it is difficult to monitor, to regulate, and to treat the pollutants, the point source, compared to point source. Okay, so basically in Malaysia, the source of water pollution is being contributed by manufacturing industry and also sewage treatment plant. Okay, this is the sewage treatment plant. Keep in mind that we contribute to this sewage treatment plant because of our wastewater, okay, household wastewater. So these two are the major contributor to our water pollution. So in terms of types of or origin of water pollutants, we can always describe water pollutants that comes from fertilizers, the pesticide, which is from the agricultural farm plantation or um, agriculture. So the chemical byproduct also comes from the industries, can be as well considered as the sources of water pollutants or the origins of water pollutants. And there are also waste and feces from animals, including human, can also be considered as a significant source of the origin of water pollutants. So basically, all of this, whatever it is that goes into our wastewater, um, will later on end up in our aquatic system and pollute the aquatic ecosystem. So basically, at home, when we use detergent, when we use hair care product, face skin care product, um, it goes into our water drain, and later on it will reach the uh, wastewater treatment plant. And after the treatment, the chemical residue will remain in the treated wastewater, but at the permissible level, it will be later on discharged into drain that will later on arrive to our aquatic ecosystem, whether it's lake or river. So this is how we actually pollute our water sources. So whether directly through point sources or indirectly through non-point sources, or also from our activities at home. Okay, basically there are many types, not just this, not just limit to these types, but also you can further explore the many other types of water pollutants. So basically, impacts of water pollution we can see basically on the biotic and abiotic changes in aquatic or a terrestrial ecosystem. Don't restrict yourself that to the changes only in aquatic ecosystem, but also the water pollution will affect the biotic and abiotic component on terrestrial. As we human, we live in terrestrial ecosystem, we have a tendency to be largely affected by water pollution. Okay, even our social economic activity can also be affected by water pollution. So basically, this water pollution in aquatic ecosystem will lead to the species threatened and also endangerment of the sensitive species. So now I'm going to describe a little bit on noise pollution. This is not so serious type of pollution and always disregarded, but keep in mind that noise pollution is somehow localized, means that it is specific to only certain place with activities that connected to the noise pollution. Activities that generate noise um, up to the certain decibel that can cause damage, right? So basically, noise is considered as unwanted sound that may damage person's hearing, and sometimes it can as well damage the physical structure, right? Because the noise has energy. Okay, because of its energy residue, noise is considered as pollution, and the amount of damage depends on the amount of energy. The higher decibel means higher the energy and cause greater damage, right? So this noise pollution basically comes from sources such as the industries, the construction, the traffic noise, the aircraft, even sometime in concert. Okay, so that's why earlier I mentioned that noise pollution is localized. It depends on the area. Sometimes we have noise from the railway, okay, from the train passing through, but mostly in urban area the noise comes from the traffic itself, traffic noise. So this is the measurement of noise. It is given in decibel. Unit level is in decibel, and anything above this red, okay, the red level indicate the potential health hazard. So with the certain range or duration of exposure. For example, this very loud noise, for example, the noise change saw, the hammer and above can generate up to 110 decibel, and even exposure for a short period of time, for example 1 minute, is enough to create damage to our hearing system. Okay, so basically effect of noise pollution can be on our physiological or auditory effect, or it could be on the non-auditory effect. which is on the psychological itself. Okay, from the psychology, noise can largely affect our emotion, our psychology. Um, okay, this is the auditory effect, mean that it's affect our hearing, right? So noise basically can induce temporary threshold shift. So basically, this is temporary. It's not permanent. It's not a permanent damage. So basically, it can cause the muffling, the um, hearing within short period of time, but later it will disappear and it will heal. All right. And but sometimes at higher decibel, noise can cause the permanent threshold shift or noise induced permanent threshold shift. So basically, this is we call it as the permanent hearing damage. So because of the damage to the inner ear. So the symptom may include conversation begin with the sound muffled and might hear like high frequency just as clear as usual. So people with this permanent hearing damage might need the hearing aid, and the people surrounding might need to understand those particular person and need to talk a little bit louder, right? So that he can hear. Okay. Another type of the auditory effect would be the acoustic trauma. This is usually caused by the sudden loud noise. Okay, or a series of loud noise that can cause permanent damage. So basically, this is also non-reversible. It is permanent damage. And the most important thing that we are experiencing here is more or less also associated with a non-auditory effect of noise. Okay, noise pollution. So basically, when we are facing noise pollution, we always associate with the lack of sleep, irritability, irritation, indigestion, heartburn, and increase in blood pressure because we cannot sleep well, and sometimes can cause heart disease, heart attack. And if prolonged with the problem, it can cause as well mental illness. So this is pretty serious about the non-auditory effect of noise pollution. And another thing is we have what we call is annoyance. Annoying, we call it. So annoyance sometimes at low level of noise can be irritating. It can be frustrating. And also high volume can be as well annoying. But this one is very subjective. It depends on person. Okay. Other than that, it can cause speech interference, difficult to hear and interpret. We can call it as a partial deafness. And another thing is sleep interference or decreased work performance or study performance because the noise make you sleepless, unable to sleep, and therefore it will cause you lack of attention, lack of concentration during study or also at work, and it can reduce one's productivity and also performance. So these are more associated with the non-auditory effect. So if I would say that at this uh, setting, our common setting here, we are exposed more on the non-auditory effect of noise pollution. Okay. So basically, in this particular section, we're going to move and discuss a little bit on soil pollution. Okay, on soil pollution, basically the soil pollutants, okay, it comes from many sources, and the most significant pollutants, or another word is contaminants, is more or less associated with hydrocarbon, heavy metals, and herbicide, pesticide, or chlorinated hydrocarbon that being used in herbicide or pesticide or other chemicals. So this is common as the soil pollutants. So basically, soil pollutants, they can be biodegrade, or sometimes it cannot be biodegrade. So those like rubber and metal, they are non-biodegradable. And with the chemicals, for the chemical contaminants, for example, some can be can be degrade due to the effect of weather, the sunlight, but they it takes longer to degrade or decay, right? So we expect that the soil pollution is also serious because sometimes it can be taken up, the pollutants can be taken up by plants. Okay? So this is another types of pollutants which relate with the biodegradable type. So basically we don't worry much on the biodegradable types because it will biodegrade, and importantly, if it is organic waste material, it actually add back the nutrient into soil. So we actually bother more on the non-biodegradable types of pollutants and also chemical pollutants. So in this slide, it mentioned that in most of the developed countries, the chemical-based industries pollutant actually contribute to soil pollution. Okay, just a little bit more on the other types of environmental pollutants, of environmental pollution. So basically, you have been somehow exposed to other types of pollution, whether we know it or to we realize or we not realize about it. So there are as well radioactive contamination, light pollution, visual pollution, and also thermal pollution. Okay, so radioactive comes from all those the radioactive material. This is pretty clear. But the light pollution, I believe that you have not, maybe have not aware that light, too much light also create pollution because over illumination and astronomy, it can cause over illumination, means that it's too bright, and it can cause astronomical interference. This is not too human, but it affects large, majorly on migrating animal. Okay, migrating birds, for example, because they migrate depends on the direction of star, for example. So when they come across the area with light pollution, they will get confused. Okay, this is more associated with the events of false landing by our turtle on the coastline because of light pollution. Okay, and another thing is visual pollution. This is very subjective because it depends on the individual what they define as pleasure or not pleasure to see. Okay, but visual pollution we can refer to the presence of overhead, for example, power line, motorway, billboard. It can be uh, interpreted as the visual pollution for someone, but not for everyone. Okay. Um, Open storage of trash, municipal solid waste can also be regarded as visual pollution. So anything that can disrupt the scene of in general, it can be considered as visual pollution. So last but not least, this is thermal pollution, where there is a temperature change in natural water bodies caused by human influence. All right. So human, for example, the factory discharge from the cooling plant will introduce hot water or warm water into lake or river ecosystem, and it caused the thermal pollution. So basically that's it for this chapter. So I hope that you will find your alternative to explore the current issues in environmental pollution that is specific to for example air pollution, water pollution, soil pollution, and also noise pollution by using examples that you can get from news channel. Okay, for example, the latest publication, newspaper article. So make sure that you update yourself with what is happening around the country and also in our region and also in different part of the world. Okay, so that's it.